Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we're going to Bava Batra daf Kuf Yud Tes. We are going to begin on Kuf Yud Tes Amud Aleph, third line from the top. Omar, it says V'habonim notlu b'schus avi avihem, that the children will be able to inherit the land of Eretz Canaan of Israel based on the merit of their grandfathers, of b'schus avi imosein, and the mother's fathers. V'asanya b'schus atzma, but I thought they only get Eretz Yisrael based on their own schus when they enter into Eretz Yisrael because they entered. So lo kasha. Ha-kamandi yermil yaitz Mitzrayim, ha-kamandi aymer levaya aretz. This is the machlokas which we've been discussing the past couple of daf now, whether or not the portions that are given to those who enter into Israel is it because they actually entered Eretz Yisrael, or is it totally on those that left Mitzrayim? Now, even though their parents died, but Al Yerusha, they will be able to inherit the portions based on the people that left Mitzrayim. And therefore that would be the answer. If it's chus atzmon or it's a chus of your grandparents. V'yiboy sema habahol avoya aretz v'lo kasha hada habi ben esrim hadol habi ben esrim. As we said before, you have to be 20 years old when you enter. It says the Rashbam, doli habi ben esrim kishbol aretz. Uvnei b'nei hamasloidim kamayri shemeisu lehen avihen. Skipping a few lines. Nimsu elu b'nei b'neihem, these grandchildren yarshinaisu kumnoi slavchad, just like the daughters of Slavchad, which we've been talking about. Sheyarshu b'nichsei chefer zikenom, that she also inherit the b'noi Slavchad, the 5 daughters also inherited from their grandfather's chelik. V'afalpi dechashivi kitfalim d'alma. They're like small people. The Indian Yerusha Savihim Shaim Yaitz Mitzrayim will be Inan B'nei Chaf B'chnisas L'Aretz. It doesn't mean that you have to be 20 years old to go into Eretz Yisrael in order to inherit. If you hold that it's totally on the going to the people who left Mitzrayim. So as a Yerusha can be given over to a child who's even under 20 years old. So if the way that you're getting it as a Yerusha is totally on the people who left Mitzrayim, so then even if you're under 20, but if the people that left Mitzrayim are under 20, then it doesn't matter even if you're over 20, when you enter Eretz Canaan, you're not going to get a chelik based on them. So as we said, that when it comes to the B'no Slavchad, they received a portion from their father, their grandfather, and also because Slavchad was a Bechor. V'mai, why is this acceptable? So, for the Gemara, Roihu ve'inu haBechor natu k'roy k'v'mochsek. How is it possible to understand this? This is really similar to what we said above. On the top of this daf, we had this in the Rashbam as well, that it's true that they are entitled to it because of the Yerusha, that eventually they're going to get Eretz Yisrael. But at this time, they didn't get Eretz Yisrael, so it's only considered to be Roy. We know that the Bechor does not get his Pishtayim, doesn't get a double portion based on that. So Rabbi Yehuda and Shmuel, B'yistais Ohalim, is based on the Yistais Ohalim, says the Rashbam. Kaloimer, b'metaltlin shahaylehem b'midbar. It's referring to like the pegs that were in the desert. Going yiseidos shetoikin behen ahalehem, the pegs that they held into their tents. Ushar metaltlin shehein muchzakim behen. So those things they did have. So that is part of the Yerusha. Hachi nakat yistais. Why does it mention pegs? Devade l'kuon hayu ahalim. Everyone had a tent. The ain adam b'midbar b'loy oil. You can't live in the desert without a tent. Avol b'nachlas Eretz Yisrael lo natul chelik b'chayra. But you're right. When it comes to Eretz Yisrael, they didn't get a double portion. They got a double portion of pegs. So this Gemara says, Meisev Rabba Rabbi Yehuda Aimer B'nosavchad natul dal chalakim. They got 4 portions of Israel. Shnemer v'yipul chavli menashe Sarah, because they got 4 of the 10. So Rabba, it's not that they were able to acquire the metaltalin, rather they actually claimed the land. But how could they get Pishtayim of the land? Because Eretz Yisrael Muchazekasi. Very powerful statement. Eretz Yisrael is Muchazekas. L'yotzim Mitzrayim, for those people that left Mitzrayim. There's a pasuk Rashbam quotes, "V'nosati yoisel lechem orasha, anina sati lechem yerusha." I'm giving to you as a yerusha. I gave it to them already. So it's considered not roy, but it's considered to be muchzik. So that's how we understand this. So Meisvei, I'm your Rabbi Chidka. So he asked the question that Shimon Hashik Moini Hayuli Chaver Metalmid Rabbi Akiva. He was among the colleagues of Rabbi Akiva. And Kachay Rabbi Shimon Hashik Moini Oimer. This is what he said. Yodeh Hay Moshe Rabbeinu Shimon Aslachad Yarsha saying that Moshe Rabbeinu, when he was posed to the question, "What's the deal over here?" So he definitely knew that the daughters of Slavchad were entitled to Yerusha. The whole question that Moshe had is, do we consider that the din of Eretz Yisrael is considered to be roy, and therefore they don't get the Pishnayim, or it's Kamoksik? The truth is that all of this parsha of the Cholais should have been said by Moshe Rabbeinu. Since the Bnei Shlafchad brought it up, therefore it's mentioned v'nichtava al yadan. It's through them, like they get the credit. Even though the truth is Moshe could have just had this written down, but because this took place with the Bnei Shlafchad presenting this question, so therefore it's in their schus that's written. As the Rashbam says, Sham mishpat umasa Bnei Shlafchad ba'arbos Moav. That's where it took place. B'sayv hamem shana. It took place at the end of the 40 years. V'od, furthermore, De'ika l'melav meparshas Yavamin, he could have warned out from the parsha of Yavama, Shabas kiben, that a daughter, it has the same status as a son. Namely, if a woman has her husband die, but they had a child, whether it's a son or a daughter, she's not zokuk. Kedechsev umeis achad mehem uvein ein loy. So he made the drasha, which is in Yavamas, the I know of. We look into it. The Habdoi Slavchad Mishom Lamdu Kidol Kaman. We're going to see on Amud Beis that's Taka, the Chochma that they came up with this. Im Kebena Nu Nirash V'im Lav Nis Tisyavim Mimenu. As we're going to see, Mamanashach. If in fact a daughter is as powerful as a son, that Yibum doesn't take place, then we shall have a Yerusha. However, if let's say we don't get a Yerusha, so then the fact that a person dies and his wife had just a daughter, just a baby girl, or whatever it is, a girl, then she should still have to do Yibum. And that's not the din. Okay, so that's the point. When it came to the person who was the Mekoshish Eitzim chopping wood on Shabbos, he knew that there was a death penalty. Shenemar Michalem Lois Yumos. We know it was Michal Shabbos. It's a Chiyav Misa. Avalohi Yodea Be'ezu Misa Hu Yomos. We don't know how he should be sentenced to death. There's Arba Misais. So Ruya Haisa Parshas Mekoshish Shitikaste Vayde Moshe could have been written by Moshe. Elosh this Chayim Mekoshish, because this Mekoshish was punishable, but Nichtava al Yadai. It's therefore written by him. Well, Madcha to teach us the opposite, really the same, but in the opposite direction. Kufi Testament Beis should be Galgun Schus Alidei Zachayim v'Chayiv Alidei Chayim. Now, Eretz Yisrael Muchzekes. If in fact Eretz Yisrael is 100% Muchzekes, and therefore you should get Pishnayim, so Maika Mistavkale. So what exactly was his question? So he says, no, he grew for Mistavkale. That was his doubt. Is it considered like a Yerusha from their forefathers? That means they can give it to others, but they themselves are not Yerush. And we answered that Tervayu Yerusha lachem avoseichem. It actually means both. That it's a Yerusha from your fathers, umarishin ve'enu yarshin, but you won't get it yourself. That's what the pasuk says, tivyemo v'sitoemo, regarding to planting them. Bahar nachalascha, the mountain of your inheritance. Tivyenu lo nemar el tivyemoi. Malamin shemis nabin ve'enu yoidin ma misnabin. They prophesied, but they didn't know what they were prophesizing. Okay, let's understand this a little bit better. Let's stop for 1 second. Look in the Rashbam. So Dilma Marisha Vina Yarshin Lachud Kaimer Abel Enu Yerusha Lachem. It's not a Yerusha. Lo Yitol Ba Habachor Chelik B'Chayra. You won't get a portion. V'Oid Shekvar Meisu Mesei Midbar. Okay. So Tiviemoi means bring them. Well, now it's Lacher Mashma, says Rashbam. It's Mashma to others. So that's what it's talking about. So he made this nevuah, but he didn't even realize what he was actually saying. Okay, so let's look at a couple questions here. Question 1: So Manoan Diada, how did he know this? So either from the din of Yibum, right? Meparshas Yavamin, Shein Shaminan Shehabas Keben, or Shekvar Nitztavu B'dinim B'mara, that these dinim were already taught at Mara, which was even preceding Har Sinai, all these dinim. So therefore he knew about it from before. Okay. Now the other answer of B'mara is actually more alluded to in the Rashbam, that it says Moav, but Kimoi Shahari dinim nitztavu B'mara, as Rashbam says. He already knew about this in Mara, as it's brought down in the Sanhedrin. Question 2. So the nafkamina is whether or not to be noitlin baroy la'av kikain benos lavchad. Will the daughters also get the double portion from their father as a bechor? Umoy rashaksiv lis navois alehem. The door hamidbar marishin v'enu yarshin you. That basically it was a prophecy that they will end up causing others to inherit, but they themselves won't inherit, because they themselves are not going to go into Israel. So therefore, that's what the pasuk is alluding to when it says Tiviemo, I'll bring them lacherim. Others will inherit it, but not you. Okay. Let's see. Question TA 13 on Kufyud Testament base. Leave the Tana the Braisa, the Moshe Yada Shabbai Slavchad Yarshais, Baman is stopping Moshe Umhem study Hasafek. So TA 13, Im Naitlos Chelk B'chayra. Im Etzusum Mechzekasi Naitlos. O the Havi Roy, the Anabachor Naitel Boroy, the Safek Marasha Hainu Yerusha, Ushmarishin. So that is the suffix that he himself had. Okay. That's TA 13. Okay. TB 14. Okay, we didn't do that yet. Alright, let's continue. So the pasuk says, "Vatamayna lifnei Moshe," that the Bnei Slavchad stood in front of Moshe, and then lifnei Elazar HaKohen, lifnei and Nesiim, and then afterwards the Nesiim. The whole aid into the whole assembly. Now after lifnei Moshe, the whole v'lo amru lehen davar. So he went to Moshe, he didn't know, but amdu lifnei Nesiim v'chol eida. Seems a little disrespectful. You go to Moshe Rabbeinu, and then afterwards you ask other people. El saris hamikra v'dar sheyu divrei Rabbi Yishaya. Actually, you have to basically turn the pasuk around. In other words, it's not written in order. Says the Rashbam, Kolemer dar sheyu ki'u kasum afreya. Read it as though it's backwards. But tamaydu lifnei Moshe, they went in front of Moshe. Umikmei Moshe, before Moshe, amdu lifnei Elazar. They stood in front of Elazar. Umikmei Elazar, before Elazar, amdu lifnei Hanasim. Umikmei Hanasim, amdu lifnei Ha'eda. So that's how you're supposed to read the pasuk. Skipping a line. V'yishenu roitzel lahaktim b'pasuk talmud l'rav el rishon rishon choshev. It's otherwise difficult to read it this way. It shows a lack of covet. That's one answer. Abu Chananoi Mishim Rabbi Eliezer bebeis medrash hayoshvin. They're sitting in the base medrash. V'holchu v'omdu lehen lifnei kulan, and they spoke in front of all of them. That's all it means. They didn't speak to them individually. So b'may kimifagi mar savar cholchim kavod l'talmud b'makam arav. So the question is, are you allowed to give kavod to a student in the teacher's presence? Mar savar in cholchim. Says Rashbam, the whole ze chashivuso shel rav hu v'nichalei. Maybe it's okay to speak in front of the presence of a Rebbe to the Talmud, because everyone knows that the Talmud's mastery of knowledge is only because of his teacher. So the teacher will feel proud that the student is able to answer this question, or maybe not. Maybe ein cholkin, and therefore that's the reason why he says Hesaris Hamikra. You have to kind of read the pasuk upside down, because there's otherwise no way that they would pose the question to the students in the presence of the teacher. So the question is, what's the din? Are we cholkin or not cholkin? So the Gemara answers, v'hilchasam cholkin, v'hilchasa ein cholkin. The halach is that you are allowed to do it, and the halach is you're not allowed to do it. So how does that help? So it depends. So kasha hilchasa hilchasa. So hilchasa hilchasa kasha. Why? Hada polgli Rabbi yikra, hada loy polgli Rabbi yikra. It all depends if the teacher has previously showed respect to their students. Says Rashbam, with Talmud yikra, vaday nichale, it's for sure good. Shechalku lo gam acherem kavod. Moshe Rabbeinu havi polig yikra l'chol Yisrael v'chein zelazeh. Moshe Rabbeinu certainly was mechabed his talmidim, so therefore, according to them, wasn't an issue at all. Okay, Tana b'noi slavchad chachmani yosein darshani yosein sidkani yosein. The b'noi slavchad were wise; they were able to dissect and darshan psukim. They're also righteous. Chachmani yosein shulafi shah dibru. They knew how to speak at the proper time. Diam Rav Shmuel bar Rabbi Yitzchak Moshe Rabbeinu Yoshev v'Darish b'Parshas Yavamin. As we mentioned, Moshe already was darshing the din of a Yavam. Shenemer ki yeshu achem yachtav. So he's talking about all the dinim of ki yeshu achem yachtav. They have to have brothers, which also includes, as we see in the beginning of Masechtas Yavamis, that if you would have a brother that dies, and then only afterwards you have a brother that's born, so that will not fly. That child, there'll be no zika, and that woman there's no yibum, because it has to be ki yeshu achem yachtov, not that one died and then the brother was born later. So Amrlo im kabein. This is what they said. Okay, we're learning about the dinim of a yavama. To im kaben anu chashuvim tanon anachal kaben. If it's true that if a woman has a son, or a daughter for that matter, then there'll be no din yibum, so then also, if they're equal in regard to that, they should also be equal regarding Yerusha. The imlav tisyavi menu. If not, then the woman should still have to do yibum, if she only had a daughter. So miyad v'yikra v'maishes mishpatan lifnei Hashem. So that's the reason why it shows the chachma in these women in their psak. Okay, darshani yishein shahayu aimros. They used to say ilu hayu loy ben lo dibarnu. So if there was a son, we wouldn't have spoken up, because they said ki ein lo ba, because my father has no son, right? So therefore, it must be they understood that if there was a son, that they would never have asked the taina, because they would have understood that you should go to the son. I have a son, you bas. I'm Rabbi Yirmiyah. Sami Mekan Bas, delete that. Even if, and this was one of the issues that the Siddukim had, that if you have a daughter versus a granddaughter, but the granddaughter is this man's son's daughter, the son died, that because of Ein Lo Ben Ayin Loi, so the granddaughter will get before the daughters. Sidkanya is saying shelo nisu ella l'hogan lehen. They only married people who were befitting them, as we'll see within their shevet. Tana Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, afil katanish mehen, even the lowest of them, lo nises b'chusa me'arbayim shana. They didn't get married less than 40 years, says the Rashbam. As it says later on, B'nos Slavchad Hutru. They could have actually married whomever they wanted to. However, they didn't. They decided they waited for the right guy. They didn't settle. They waited to find someone proper from their shevet. So therefore, it's like a maila that she waited until she was 40 years old. It's an interesting thing. Sometimes nowadays, in this day and age, women are not getting married so young, So over here, it's almost considered like a lot of women's rights over here. These are women that didn't get married until they're 40 years old. They didn't settle. They felt that there should be equal rights, that men and women should be treated equally when it comes to, at a certain point, they should be entitled sometimes for Yerusha. When it comes to the din of Yibum, it should be the same. Fine. Eini, it's not true. If you get married under 20, Yoledes ad Shishim, you'll be able to keep giving birth until you're 60. Bas Esrim, if you get married only at 20, Yoledes ad Arboim, you'll only be able to have kids until 40. And Bas Arboim, if you wait till 40, Shumei and Yoledes, you're not going to be able to have kids. So our answer is El Mitaysha Shesidkanya is saying Nasal Hanes Kiyocheved. Even though it's true that when you wait a little bit too long, it may be difficult for a woman to give birth, but Alidei Nes, B'nai Slavchad, did have children. I'm going to stop there. Question number 3. B'nai Slavchad Chachmani is saying, Sidkani is saying, B'mahaya Nikr Chachmasan, B'mahaya Nikr Sidkasan. So in their wisdom, B'derech Shlo Dibru El Lafi Shah, they waited until Moshe was talking about the parsha of Yavama. Sidkaniyos Shlo Ratzul Hidabek El B'Hagoinim Alva B'Shahutuhem Lehen Hatoyi Beinehem. They said you can marry whomever you want, but they did not just marry whomever came their way. Fine. Question TA14 we didn't do. B14, so we did see this, and it depends, obviously. I wrote, Ima Rav Maflig, or Nitain Kavod L'Talmidim, Kimo Moshe Rabbeinu, Az Rishaya, V'im Hu Makbid, V'lo Reitzel Nitain Kavod L'Talmidim, Az Aser Adkan.